Good morning and welcome to Community Church. We are graced by the piano presence, elegance, and style of Michael Shea this morning, and it's always a treat to have Michael and Fulani here. There are regular repeat offending guests, and it's always just so great for them to beautify, embellish, as they say in English, which you translate to Spanish, embellecer, which means beautify our space and our time together here. We light this candle for friends we've lost, and I want to mention my close friend, Jim Thomas from Los Angeles, who I was just with 2 weeks ago, and he has just passed. And I light this candle for him this morning. I light it for anybody else you know who is gone to the next reality. And we welcome you this morning. And we have Michael and we have Fulani who will start our program, and we'll take it from there. We have a wonderful time together planned for you.
Yes, hello. Good morning, everyone. I see you out there. Wave at me, please. Yes. Hi. Hi, Miss Little One. Hello. How are you today? Good. My name is Fulani. Can you say Fulani? Yes, thank you. I love to hear my name. We'll be talking about women today and all of the struggles that happen. Yes, ma'am? Yes. My skin is black. My arms are long. My hair is woolly. And my back is strong, strong enough to take the pain inflicted again and again. What do they call me? My name is Aunt Sarah. My name is Aunt Sarah. Aunt Sarah. My skin is tan. My hair is fine. My hips invite you. My mouth like wine. Whose little girl am I? Anyone who has money to buy. What do they call me? My name is Sweet Thing. My skin is brown. My manner is tough. I'll kill the first mother I see. My life has been rough. I'm awfully bitter these days because my parents were slaves. What do they call me? Oh, my name is Peaches. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fulani and Michael. Folks, just a couple of announcements. We have a petition here that is it's destined to go to decision makers or leaders, and it's about our efforts to free the Holy Land Foundation 5. If you don't know about them, we gave them our 2022 Sacwin Vanzetti Award, and we had a really incredible, moving event in December.
Dean, you have to be closer to the microphone.
And we are still going to fill this petition front and back with signatures asking our decision makers to have another look at this horrific case of 5 Palestinian Muslim businessmen who started a foundation to benefit children in Gaza and the West Bank, and in the post 9/11 hysteria against immigrants, especially Muslim immigrants, were closed down and then subsequently jailed. 3 of them are still 20 years, 15 years later, serving 65-year sentences. And I want to just say this, that we're collecting signatures, and by way of introduction or announcement of an event that comes up this Wednesday. And it is a screening of the Al Jazeera documentary about the Holy Land Foundation. We will be here physically as well as on Zoom. And you can join us to watch that documentary. You can also look at Miko Peled's talk, which was, that's when we gave the award. He gave a 45-minute synopsis of the case. He wrote a book that's called Injustice, the Story of the Holy Land Foundation. And you can purchase this book here at the church anytime you're here on a Sunday or on a Wednesday when we have our open house at noon. We serve pupusas every Wednesday. Join us. You can also see what else is in this room, which is lots and lots of books, all that are for sale. No, not all. Our library is not for sale, but our books that we inherited are for sale. And we are slowly deciding what to do with all those books. We also have paintings on the wall from Diane Esmond, the mother of Victor Wallace, our good friend and presenter here at Community Church. Beautiful Impressionist paintings. We also have the product, the fruit of my recent trip to El Salvador, which is beautiful embroidered shirts and jean jackets and coats that, here's an example. You can see that kind of thing, just really beautiful work that these women in this village called El Higueral do. And you can see them for a while here. They will be on display. I can't say enough about how lovely the work is they do. I collect solid color shirts from thrift stores. I'm a thrift store rat. Boomerangs, Goodwill, all those places. And I collect these shirts and take them a suitcase full every time I go to El Salvador. We have a brand new newsletter, and the first event on the newsletter is today, and that's Susan McLucas that we're really looking forward to hearing from again. Susan is our good friend and multi-activist on many causes that are dear to us, including, and this is the way we announce the other event this coming week, Thursday. This is a celebration of National Student Press Freedom Day, and it is an event focusing on Julian Assange, who won our 2021 Sacco and Vanzetti Award. And this features several speakers and several film clips. And we hope you can join us for that as well on Thursday, either physically in the room or on Zoom as well. And that one probably on YouTube as also. And we have also this week our annual W.E.B. Du Bois address. Du Bois spoke many times here during the 30s, 40s, and 50s. The last time he spoke was 1959, before he retired and moved to Ghana. We have lots of other things here. Katie Miranda Ali, who is an incredible jeweler and sculptor and painter from California, Palestinian Mexican, and she will be, she's also a very astute political voice. She does a podcast. She will be interviewing Bashara Nassar, who is the founder and executive director of the Museum of the Palestine People in Washington, D.C. So we will get a double dose of Palestinian art and beauty and elegance on that day. We also have speakers on a book that they just wrote, Talking to the Girls. intimate and political essays on the Triangle Shirtwaist Factory fire. If you don't know, I bet you most of you know what it is. It's a tragedy that happened in 1911, and they have collected a bunch of essays. This is Edwige Junta and Marianne Trasciati, the editors. One of the writers of an essay is named Michelle Fazio, and she's a good friend of ours because she is deep into the study of Italian anarchism and also of Sacco and Vanzetti. And she has been very close to our Sacco and Vanzetti collection, which is on the 3rd floor. Come on a Wednesday and we will give you a tour of that amazing collection as well. And I shout out to Jerry Kaplan, who has spent a whole year of his retired life collating and organizing and preserving this archive that we inherited from the late Bob Datilio, and it's all on the 3rd floor. We have speaker Sabrina Salvati coming up. We have our own member and board member, Alen Perez Somarriba, who will be speaking, and other things, including concerts coming up. One of them was 2 nights ago, Rob Flax's Boom Chick Trio, and it was a magnificent event, just virtuosic playing in a swing style, in the style of Stefan Grappelli and Django Reinhardt. And look at it on the YouTube channel. It was beautiful. There was an audience of 2. But it didn't matter because we finished the concert, which was a lovely recording, by the way, as well. And it turned out the 2 who came were also amazing musicians. And one of them sat down at the piano, and the other one, I don't remember their names, young, fabulous players. And we were here till 11 p.m. listening to these other players. I went down to the next door and got a 6-pack of beer, and we just sat around and had a great time, had our Holy Communion after hours right here at the church. And March 24th, another incredible concert. Jacqueline Schwab is the pianist extraordinaire who has graced all of those Ken Burns documentaries, Civil War, baseball, World War II, with her just elegant piano style. Jacqueline will be here March 24th in person. We also have a week later, Dylan Buston, who is an amazing songwriter, theater, playwright, storyteller. March 31st, Dylan Buston. Lots of other stuff. Check out our newsletter. If you haven't gotten a physical one, we can send one to you. Just let us know. Or if you want to be on our email list that has the same information electronically, just send us your email address and we will get you informed about upcoming community church stuff. Couple other books that came in. This one is remember 2 weeks ago we had an event featuring the poetry and revolutionary activism of Roque Dalton, the Salvadoran poet revolutionary. This book is a novel that he wrote. It's called Miguel Marmol, Roque Dalton, and we look forward to finding more of his poetry and adding it to our huge poetry library that's also on the 3rd floor. And this is a friend of mine. His name was Father Tommy Greenan. Tommy Greenan was a Scottish priest who was in El Salvador during the 80s and ministered to people behind the lines in the conflictive zones of El Salvador. And Tommy wrote a beautiful, he's passed now, but and his priestly partner, who is named Henry McLaughlin, put together this compilation of his diaries, and there's a lot of people that I know who are mentioned in this diary. Father Tommy Greenan, who exercises a preferential option for the poor in El Salvador. Love that Scottish rolled R. So these books are here, and we'd like to just get you excited about all kinds of things going on. And we'd like to tell you that that if you want to join Community Church, we have a membership book that you sign, and that's the first part of the process. If you want to be part of our future and be part of our decision making about what happens to this auditorium and what happens in our building, and be part of forming our future programs as well, join us. We want to bring back Michael and Fulani for some more music, maybe a couple of numbers before we get on with our program. Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea.
What a difference a day makes. 24 little hours. What the sun and the flowers, where there used to be rain. My yesterday was blue, dear, so I'm a part of you, dear. My lonely nights are through, dear, since you said you were mine. Oh, what a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can't be stormy. Since that moment of bliss, that thrilling kiss, it's heaven when you find romance on your menu. What a difference a day makes, and the difference is you. What a difference a day makes. 24 little hours of the sun and the flowers, where there used to be rain. My yesterdays were blue, dear, but still I'm a part of you, dear. My lonely nights are through, dear, since you said you were mine. What a difference a day makes. There's a rainbow before me. Skies above can't be stormy. Since that moment of bliss, that thrilling kiss, it's heaven when you find romance on your menu. What a difference a day makes. What a difference a day makes. What a difference a day makes. And the difference is you. And you. And you, and you, and you. music. Yes. It warms your heart, right? No matter how old the tune is. And sometimes we do tunes from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. And songs that I learned when I was 5 and 6 years old, believe it or not. I haven't forgotten a lyric yet. If I walk into another room, and me and Michael were talking about this today, I get in the next room, I say, oh, what did I come in here for? So I have to go backtrack and say, oh, you were going to put the water on. So I'm walking back to the kitchen. You're going to put the water on. You're going to put the water on. But I have not forgotten any of my lyrics. You know, it's just a wonderful experience for me, remembering all those songs. How's our list looking over there, Michael? Hmm? I wanted to save that one till after she speaks. Yeah. Okay, let's try that. That's a fun song. Yeah. This is an oldie. Button up your overcoat when the wind is free. Take good care of yourself. You belong to me. Eat an apple every day. Get to bed by 3. Take good care of yourself. You belong to me. Be careful crossing streets. Ooh, ooh. Don't eat sweets. Ooh, ooh. Cut out all those meats. Ooh, ooh. You'll get a pain and ruin your tum-tum. When the wind is free, take good care of yourself. You belong to me. And these tunes were all danceable. The swing, the hucklebuck, the Charleston back in the day. My mom and dad used to go to the big bands in New York City, and they'd have a dance marathon. There'd be 40 musicians over here, 40 musicians over here, and they would compete on who could get the best dancers, and who could play the best sounds. You know, it was really nice. Stride piano, regular pianos, and all kinds of horns, violins, trumpets, saxophones, drummers, singers. So nice. Be careful crossing the street. Oh, cut out meats. Ooh, don't eat sweets. Ooh, you'll get a pain and ruin your tum-tum. Eat an apple every day when the wind is free. Take good care of yourself. You belong to me. Take good care of yourself. You belong to me. Please take care of yourself. We have some special songs for you about women and how they feel. And after you speak, we'd like to give the audience a few of those tunes. Thank you very much. Did you want to do another tune solo? Are you good? You want to do a solo? Play something nice for them, Michael, okay? You play something nice. Oh, we're done?
How about if you play a solo while I'm introducing Susan?
Absolutely.
something like that. I can't get enough of Michael Shea and Falani Haynes. It's just so lovely to have them. I want to tell you that we've reached a incredible landmark, which is that we have 10,000 YouTube subscribers on our channel. And it just so happens that 5 of them are watching right now. Hello, you. Oh, 7. We're going up in numbers as the minutes go by. Just want to shout out to them, and a thank you to Amar, who has done this job of taking video clips from some of our speakers and putting them up as the clip unto itself, and has garnered lots and lots of interest. The likes of Richard Wolf or Scott Ritter or Chris Hedges. So we have quite a presence on YouTube and are trying to figure out how to get more of their attention to what we're doing, as well as not get censored by same said entity who has censored some of our other speakers. Today we have Susan McLucas, who has been here a number of times and is a beloved and well-known activist on several fronts. I remember Guantanamo. I remember what we'll hear about this morning, which is female FGM, not only in Africa, but all over the world, and also on Julian Assange. And Susan is a powerful voice that speaks for our movement here in Boston. And we're just so glad to have you here once again, Susan. Welcome, Susan McLucas. And thank you, Michael.
Thank you so much. I am Susan McLucas, the head of Healthy Tomorrow. And I got concerned about female genital mutilation. And in 1997, I went over to Mali for the first time. I've been over there 12 times, and for a total of 3.5 years. My last trip was in 2009. Female genital mutilation, or FGM, as we usually call it, is the practice of cutting off the top of the clitoris of a girl, and often much more of the genitalia. And it's done for various reasons, mostly to keep women well behaved. It's just an awful practice, of course. So I decided I would go over to Mali, one of the countries where the number of women being cut is highest. And so here is my group of colleagues. This was 10 years into my time there. The executive committee of Sini Sanuma, which is the partner group of Healthy Tomorrow, my group here in the States. Shaka Traore is on my left there in the matching outfit. This is what the Women's Ministry puts out every year to commemorate February 6th, which is the International Day of Zero Tolerance to FGM. And the guy to my right also has a shirt of that same material. And the woman beside him in the blue is also very involved still in our movement. Okay, let's go to the next slide. FGM is practiced a lot in some countries of Africa, and but all over the world, in Indonesia, in the Middle East, a little bit here and there. In the States, it's practiced, but these days only by immigrant communities. Here is Mali, where I work, And it's in that dark red to show that over half of the women have been cut there. It's way over half of grown women. It's in the high 90s, the high 80s, and of girls up to 14, it's in the mid 70s percent of the girls are cut. So we're going in the right direction, but we need to speed up the process. There are, of course, many terrible consequences from having your genitals cut as a young girl. First of all is the absolute unspeakable experience of the pain and betrayal. Whoops, my mic is gone. The pain and betrayal of being held down and cut by people that you love. And then many girls just die of losing blood. They have infections all their lives, recurring urinary and vaginal infections, sometimes so bad that they can't have children anymore. It makes labor incredibly difficult. As we know, labor is hard enough to begin with, but if you have a scar around the opening, it's like 10 times worse, and there can be tears, and people have fistulas, which means they're incontinent because of their difficult labor. And lots of these women are shunned, and we've treated a number of such cases. Sex is painful for many excised women, as you can imagine. People get tetanus. One of the people in my committee that put out the album had a sister that he lost because of getting tetanus when she was cut. People can get AIDS because lots of the excisers aren't careful about sterilizing their instruments. And of course, people have post-traumatic stress in the worst way. And many people die either straight from losing blood when they're originally cut, but a lot of them also as a result of childbirth. It's just so difficult, it becomes impossible. So for all these reasons, I wanted to stop FGM. So let's go to the next slide. My first trip in Mali, I noticed that there wasn't a poster in current use that I could see. So I put together one, and I got a local artist to draw a picture, and we put the names of 12 other groups on the poster because the head of the center where I was working said, we don't want it to seem like we think we're the only ones. So at the bottom, it says, call this and this and this. Nobody ever calls, but still, here's the poster that I made. And in my second trip, I was working on putting it up. Before I left, we gave out 100 and 200 to various people. Let's go back to the slide if we can. And when I got there at the beginning of the second trip, I called people up. How did it go with, using those 200 posters we gave you? And they said, oh, that's a good reminder. We should do something with those. Anyhow, so different groups did put them up. And I also just, when I didn't know what to do, I would bike around town. And if I saw a health center or just a store with a friendly person, I'd say, do you want to put up the poster here? And that's Shaka Traore there with the poster that he put up in his store. He was a shopkeeper. And on my way into town, I would bike by his store, and I would stop in and get stuff, and we got to be good friends. And so he put up the poster there, and he just got really inspired about the whole thing. I gave him a few extra posters, and he gave them to other people. And sometimes people who came into the store would ask if they could come back after the store closed and talk more. And so occasionally I'd bike by and I'd see Shaka with a bunch of people, mostly women, in a circle outside. And I'd say, what was going on? He said, well, I was telling him why I have the poster up. So he's just a natural activist. And he's currently the president of SUNY Sanuma and our chief person. And he has a fun story that he told me in our weekly conversation last week. He said, oh, by the way, I was on my way to work the other day and I saw an acquaintance. I stopped to see, to say hi and see what he was doing. And he said, oh, I'm here to come bring my daughter to be excised. And Shaka said, no, you are not bringing your daughter to be excised. That's ridiculous. People don't do that anymore. And here are all the reasons. And they had this long conversation. They went inside the courtyard of the exciser where he had brought his daughter to be cut. And there were 4 other families with kids around 2 or 3 who were waiting to be cut too. And the exciser listened in, and they had about an hour-long conversation about, you can't do it. Your kid's it's gonna be so painful. You have to watch and see what's happening to that girl, because the parents always go away. They can't stand it. Well, he said, you watch this if you do it. And when she grows up, she'll have terrible problems. And after about an hour, the guy goes home with his girl intact. All the other families went home with their girls intact. And the exciser was sitting there and said, whoa, what just happened? And so he's going to go back and talk to her, and hopefully she'll decide that she doesn't want any part of this. Most excisers didn't intend to be hurting people. They intend to be keeping an important tradition going. And then a lot of the ones that we have convinced to stop have become important spokespeople for us. So that was how I met my main collaborator, just putting the sign up. Okay, so maybe toward the end of my second trip, I started thinking, well, the poster is good, but a lot of people can't read, they can see the picture, but, and we want something else anyhow. And I said, maybe let's have a concert, let people hear why this is a bad thing. And then as I was planning the concert with other people, we said, we want to be sure to get a really good recording. And it evolved into the idea of making an album, which we did. Here's my committee at our room in the National Art School, which the art school let us use as our office. And there are a couple of musicians, a couple of producers, a professor at the art school, and me reaching out to big artists and choosing which songs we thought were good enough to go on the album. It was kind of an interesting process. At first, people thought, gee, it's weird enough having a song against FGM. Can we have 2 on the same album? And we said, yeah, I think we can have 2. And then we'd get more and more. We ended up with 8 songs against FGM and 4 other songs about women's rights. But big artists we're talking about, Kandria Kayate, Ami Queta, everybody was amazed that I could get them on the same album because they sort of are, they vie for the #1 spot of most important women vocalists. So, so we were putting the songs together. We had, I think, 5 songs in Bambara all ready to go. And then we thought maybe we should get some more songs in other languages. So let's go to the next slide. And this guy, Dai Kone, wasn't a member of the committee, but he was a friend. He's an artist and a griot, a traditional storyteller and very influential person in Mali. And he knew about our project and he was always wishing us well and so forth. And one day he came in and said, my wife has written a song in Siracuole about FGM, but we couldn't possibly sing it. She couldn't sing it. The family would never allow it. The big brothers would be totally opposed. And I said, well, are you sure? And he said, well, let's go talk to them. So we went over to the public market where they always sit by this big tree. And we found them and I explained what we were doing. And they loved the idea. They thought it was brilliant. They said, why hasn't anyone ever thought about this before? We'll help you. We'll play backup Nagoni on your song. And Naini is welcome to play this song with our blessings on the album. And so that's how we got our song in Siracuole. There's also a song in Dogon and Senufo. And that might be it. Anyhow, so, and this whole family has stayed involved in the movement. I often hear from Di. I went over here. I gave the album to a bunch of radio stations. I talked to some people. Naini sang her song for some people, and they've really been some key people in the movement. Okay. So here we are recording the album in 2000. Masambu is the head of the instrumental ensemble of Mali. They did a song not about FGM, but about all the things women could be, like doctors and lawyers and engineers and so forth. And Kandwi Koyate is one of the big famous singers. And she had already been a little famous for, well, quite famous for a song she did about girls' education. So she was used to singing on social topics. And I started asking her if she wanted to sing for us. And she'd always say, well, I'm traveling and now I'm sick. And gee, I'm not sure, let me think about it. And then after a year or so, she told her husband, I better sing for that lady because she's never going to leave me alone if I don't. So she sang, she wrote a song, but she took some of the words from the song that I wrote. It was a silly idea, but while I was home waiting for my next trip, planning to record an album, I wrote a song. I don't usually write songs, but I was inspired. But guess what? It had an American tune. And so all the Malian musicians would hear this thing and said, I can't sing that. But she took some words saying, we can't do much about the heat. It's hard to make it rain. We can't do much about a lot of things, but we can avoid a lot of pain if we stop excising our daughters. And so she wrote that song and we made it into our first music video. We ended up making 5 music videos out of some of these songs. Okay, and so here's the album. Let's see the picture of the album. And here is the album itself, the CD version. It was an audio tape as it came out in Mali. And this was the most wonderful thing for me, having worked on this all this time. As part of the grant that we got to put out the album, we had contracts with 12 radio stations. So when the album came out, it was on the radio stations all over the place. And let's go to the next slide. So here I am biking around town. My bike basket is filled with tapes, going to take them to different groups and radio stations. And meanwhile, the people fixing the motorcycles on the side of the road, they've got the radio on and our songs are coming out of that. And then I go in to get pictures from, you know, whatever I've been taking pictures of, and the radio is on there and they're playing the songs. And I thought I had died and gone to heaven. But in any case, it was a really exciting time. And people got to know the songs and everybody was happy with them. And over a period of years, we made music videos, which have come out on Molly and TV hundreds of times. It took me sitting in front of the office of the director maybe a total of 5 days to get him to decide whether he could play them, but he finally decided he would play them. He played them, and people really liked them. Okay. So now the poster was all over town. And a couple of the people who took them and put them up were wondering what else they could do. They really liked the movement. They were nurses or nurses' aides, and they worked in health centers where they had the poster up. They had given the poster to other people, but about every 2 weeks, they would call me independently. They didn't know each other. And they would say, well, what else do you want us to do? And I said, well, keep talking it up. I don't know. And after a few calls like this, I said, well, let's get together. We'll make a time. We'll go to a restaurant. I'll buy you a soda. And we won't leave until we've got a plan for what people can do to help in the movement. And so we got together and we thought, should we do a survey, see how many people are with us? And then maybe we should just take signatures of people who are with us. And that's what we decided. We have a pledge. It says, I promise never to excise my daughter. And I'm against excision, and I promise to fight against this practice in all its forms. If I have a daughter, I will not have her excised, and I will do everything to protect her from those who would like to have her excised. And so here's a place for people to sign, which usually means a little squiggle. The person who's taking the signatures would write the name and the contact information and all of this. And then we have a few questions, and including, is it a good time to have a law against FGM? And almost everybody, 95%, say, yes, we need a law. When we started out, I had a column saying, if someone excised your daughter against your will, would you take them to court? And we only got about 5 pages filled like that. And my committee made me take it out because they said it's so non-Malian, the idea of taking a family person to court. So I wish we still had it in there, but it's a group project. So, but it has, you know, it does ask if it's time for a law. And we have, so we got lots of signatures from different people here over the years. Let's look at one of them. Next, yeah, here's a guy filling out the pledge against excision. We had lots of activists who would go around and just have conversations and ask people to sign. And then sometimes they'd have big meetings and ask people to sign. That's an easier way of getting a lot of people at one time. But we ended up with thousands of signatures. And here's what they look like in their box. We put them into folders by who took them so that the people can feel the glory of, oh, my folder is nice and thick here. And so in 2007, I think, let's go to the next slide here. Yeah, in 2007 was the first time that we turned in the signatures. We had 30,000 signatures at that point. We turned them into the National Assembly, and they, the president of the National Assembly said, I can't believe we don't have a law against FGM. This is ridiculous. We're all like, oh yeah, this is really gonna happen. And then I don't know what happened, but they didn't vote a law. And then we got new legislators coming in, and we've got to train up the new ones. So then next slide here. In 2015, we gave them 68,000 signatures. We had to make another wooden box, and now we have 3 of these big boxes. And it seemed like they were well received, and people were into doing something, and especially the members of the Commission on Violence Against Women were really excited about it, but nothing happened. The religious community, much of it is very opposed to the struggle against FGM, much less having a law. And so I guess that's what's keeping people from doing this. But Shaka is in touch with the head of the law commission of the new government, which is a coup government. They call it the National Transition Council. And he says he really wants to vote a law against FGM, but they have to do a few things before. And so we think it'll happen sometime this year, but then I've thought that a lot of times. I've made a rule, no putting in the newsletter that we're going to have a law soon, because we just don't know when it's going to happen. But the nice thing about that is that there are a lot of people in Mali who think we do have a law already, because there's enough of a campaign, and they hear about it on the radio, they see billboards, mostly ours. So I saw a video where a couple of different excisers were saying, well, we gave up the practice because we didn't want to get in trouble with the police. And I'm saying, well, I'm certainly not going to tell them that it's perfectly legal, but we think we're going to have a law. Most of the countries where this is practiced do have laws. And in many of them, they kind of ignore them. But one thing we've done recently is shown the film and the trailer for the film In the Name of Your Daughter, which is a wonderful film about Tanzania and how they're using their law to really protect girls. The courts and the nonprofit that has the safe house and the police all work together, and they just, don't give girls back to families where they think the family isn't convinced that they're not going to do it. They make them sign pledges, and it's working pretty well. We're showing that to try to give the Malian officials the idea that you can really do something. It can make a difference. So we're tired of all these ceremonies on February 6th saying, oh, we've made so much progress. Let's see a law. Not that it'll be the end of the struggle, but so we also have done a lot of work in villages. And the way this started, that guy in the back there, Togo, was one of our main people. We had like a 6 or 8 person committee that would meet together. And one day he said, I've heard that the people in my village, Musala, are going to have a big excision ceremony. They're going to cut a lot of girls. And we said, oh my goodness. So we sent a delegation out. I didn't go, but maybe 2 or 3 of my Malian colleagues went out, and they had a series of meetings in Musala. And sure enough, they decided, let's not do this. In fact, let's not do FGM in this village anymore. And I had a hard time believing they were really deciding that, but they really had. And so, so this was our second village, Tamala, that also made the same decision. But let's look at the ceremony in Musala. There we are celebrating that village's decision to stop FGM. And there we are with our February 6th uniforms. And the 2 women with the pieces of paper there, they're holding their certificates of honor, these things that we give to excisers who agree to stop. I remember one time somebody said, oh, it's just like a diploma. I'm going to put it on my wall. We said, yes, please do. It says, the blessing of all the girls and women of Mali is upon you. And to stop excision is to put the interests of the people at the same level of your own. Sini Sanuma honors you with this certificate and expresses our satisfaction and joy with your decision. And so we now have 144, I think, excisers who have agreed to stop cutting girls. And this was, we're very happy about that, of course. This is our 5th village to stop, Soba. At most of these ceremonies, we invite the TV and radio, and I'm pretty sure they were here. There's always dancing, and there's a big feast, and there's speeches. We usually get a victim of FGM to testify about all the problems that she's had, and the village chief would put in a word, or lots of times he's too old and one of his counselors will speak. But this was a very happy occasion. This is the last of the village ceremonies where I was present. 2009 was my last year there. Okay, let's go to the next one. And this is our most recent village, Ngolobugu. They brought in the guy in the modern looking suit is a official from the county hall, and they had the mayor and big officials from the, big leaders from the village. And the woman with the red headscarf there is our kind of number 2, Asetu Ture. So they all were giving speeches, and one of the people said, gee, these people just kept coming, because we had started work in this village when I was there. I remember one of the early meetings in Ngolobugu where I sang a song, and then somebody else said they wanted to sing one, and so they sang, and some people went home and got some drums, and we kind of had a little party. And so a few years later, they said, let's make this official. We don't really need to be doing any FGM anymore. So some of our meetings are in villages, but a lot of them are in towns. And here's one in a place called Sanfil, a neighborhood of Bamako, the capital of Mali. This group is called Confidence. The women's groups all give their selves fun names. That's Fanta Keita, one of our main people. And she is explaining why not to excise your daughters. And in the course of these meetings, lots of times they come across excisers. And so she found out about an exciser. Let's go to the next one here. Masaran, who didn't live in the neighborhood, but excised in the neighborhood. So Fanta tracked her down, had a few conversations with her. And at first she said, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to hear about it. And then, so Fanta said, well, sure, let's not talk, but let me just show you some pictures. And she showed some pictures of women with terrible consequences and trying to give birth and not being able to. And she said, okay, let's talk. And anyhow, so here she is signing the pledge against excision. Here she is with her certificate of honor. And here she is with a whole bunch of housewares that she is selling now as her new profession. I think we gave her $75 or $100 to start in her little business there. So that was a good outcome. Okay. So here is another meeting led by Kaniba, the woman in the blue dress in the first picture. She was one of my sisters in my host family when I first went there, and we've stayed in touch. And she's just an inspired activist. And this meeting she had because one of the women who she had convinced in 2004 to stop excising called her up and said, I'm having trouble with some of the women in my women's group explaining to them why they shouldn't cut their girls. Can you come? And so Kaniba said, yes, I'll be there. And it was so fun. I was there actually when she got convinced. Kaniba had had 3 meetings with her, and the 4th time I went along, and I wasn't able to engage in the discussion too well because my Bambara is very rudimentary. But I asked whether I could sing my song for her, and Kaniba said, sure, sing it. So we don't know if that was what, it was probably just the 4th time was enough. She finally got convinced, but maybe my song helped a little bit. So anyhow, here's another meeting of that Kaniba organized where they're starting with singing that song. And I'll sing a little bit for you. It goes, a baby is born, and what a wonder is this, a perfect creation just the way she is. So tell everybody, everybody you know, just leave her alone. You gotta leave her alone. And this is how it sounds over there. Musomani dobangera denyumando, ara chogo yere feya dafalendo, otuma akafo duga mogo beye, beka fara la beka twachogo la. And so she got everybody singing. And it's a nice way to start a meeting. And she says, people get attentive when you start with a song, which is what we do here. So another aspect of our work, and in these meetings, lots of times we find women who come up to the person who's leading the meeting afterwards and say, you know, I think I've got one of those problems you're talking about. And in fact, Kaniba just in the last 2 months had a woman like this who had had a childbirth, really bad tear, and she could barely walk for a while. And luckily her sister, who was at the meeting, works in a clinic, and she convinced the doctor to treat this woman. I didn't quite approve, but she said, the sister said she was her niece. And so since it was family, the doctor was happy to do it for no money, which was good because we really didn't have money to give her. But anyhow, so she got treated. And then the next time she went back to see those people, they were all like, oh, thank you, thank you. Now that Sitan is better, we're so grateful. But this is from a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago or so. We had a special medical campaign, and we invited people to contribute to help women with terrible consequences from FGM. And we got about $5,000, and we treated 8 or 9 women. And here are a couple of them. In the white is the doctor and the nurse, and then there's Shaka and one of our other, I'm not sure who that other person is, but that's the health center where they were treated. The doctor worked basically pro bono. He just got a tiny little bit of money, and then we paid for the, the clinic costs and the medicine, and we're pretty happy to. We probably have treated maybe 20 such women, and Sini Sanuma, our partner group, without Healthy Tomorrow's help, I bet they've treated about 100 people, because when they get a big grant from UNICEF or Population Fund or something, there's always a little, fund for treating victims, prise en charge, they call it. And we have a new project from SWED, the Sahel Women's Empowerment and Demographic Dividend, which gave us a big grant for 2 years, and a big part of that is treating women. They plan to treat 100 women, as well as doing some prevention. Okay. And another thing we do is put billboards around town. This is our new billboard. We had one for years that was like a terrorized girl about to be cut, like screaming. And some people liked it and some people didn't. And in any case, we want to mix it up and have a difference. So we went like with a soft sell approach here. And the mother is saying, I love my daughter, so I'm protecting her from FGM. And we've got one of these up now, and we're going to put one in Sikasso, the second largest city in Mali, soon, whenever the women's ministry can find time to go over there. And yeah, so here we are. This picture is a still from one of our music videos, the music video of Kandia Koyate's song, where the girl is singing because she's going off to, she's singing, help me, mother, father, stop this. And some neighbors come in, including Shaka and Sadio, and they convince everybody to stop. And here they're at the end saying, yes, we can say no to FGM. And so there's our website, there's my contact information. I would love to hear from any of you who would like to be involved. Shoot me an email or talk to me if you're here in person. And thank you so much for listening.
My God, Susan. It's just such moving activism. You deserve the Don Quixote Award. Yes, there will be after we have some music, but I can't give you these because these came from my aunt who just passed away, but I just have them here. This place is Dean's Show and Tell, and I'm kind of guilty about that, but just Don Quixote, who fought against windmills and fought against injustice in sometimes causes that you think are hopeless. That's what I think about when I think of what you're doing in Mali and in Africa, Susan. So many questions, but we have music too to close out. This is the moment when we just mention that we depend on your charity and your money. Just say it, Dean. We want your money. I found a beautiful little parody of a song for community church. I have to work it up. It was from the 80s, and somebody wrote a community church song about we need your do re mi. You remember that Woody Guthrie song about if you ain't got the do re mi. Anyway, this is the moment, and if you're on Zoom or YouTube, you can find our website, which is communitychurchofboston.org. And there is a PayPal option as well as a credit card option. There will be a basket in the back for those of you who are here physically. Don Quixote, it almost reminds me of trying to ban bullfighting in Spain, or my lost cause, trying to ban football and boxing in the United States. Just a paradigm for violence and just so many questions, but let's hear from Fulani and Michael. One last song from Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea. It's always just such a pleasure to have you here.
My goodness. God bless you. You have done a lot of work. Here in America, we would go to the medical industry and go right to the top and say, this has to stop. But you had no options to do that? Yeah. I see. Oh, okay. I see. Wow. I don't know how I feel right now. It's nobody knows the trouble I feel. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I feel. Glory, hallelujah. Sometimes I'm up, sometimes I'm down. Oh, yes, yes. Sometimes I'm almost hitting the ground. Oh, yes, yes. Nobody knows the trouble I feel. Nobody knows my sorrow. Nobody knows the trouble I feel. Glory, hallelujah. I'm a retired nurse, and my heart bleeds while you speak, because I was getting my music ready and talking with Michael, and I didn't hear your initial, the beginning of your speech. Is it? Oh, I didn't hear everything. I'm bothered. I'm really troubled, because when you said the birthing canal, and I thought what you were going to talk about was the clitoris extraction, that part. So if that is excised, then that doesn't necessarily make the women have a bad birth. But there's other cuttings that go on. I think I missed some of it. I'm sorry. I just didn't.
Yeah, sometimes it's just the clitoris,
Yes.
but even that, there's going to be a little scar, which makes it a little bit less elastic. But sometimes they cut the little lips too, just for good measure. And so then it's a disaster
I see.
for having a baby.
Well, okay. In the hustle of today, we're all inclined to miss little things that mean so much: a word, a smile, or a kiss. When a woman loves a man, he's the hero in her eye. And a hero he will always be if he just realizes. She may be weary. Women do get weary wearing that same old shabby dress. But when she's weary, try a little tenderness. That's all you've got to do. You know she's waiting, just anticipating things she will never possess. While she's without them, try a little tenderness. It's not just sentimental, no. has her grief and her care, but a word that's soft and gentle, yes, makes it easier for her to bear. Oh, you won't regret it. Women don't forget it. Love is their own happiness. It's all so easy. Try a little tenderness. Oh, please. It's all so easy. Try a little tenderness. A little tenderness. A little tenderness. Oh, please, a little tenderness. Thank you. Thank you for the work that you do. It's a pleasure meeting you. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Dean.
Thank you, Fulani Haynes and Michael Shea. And Fulani, if there are any more questions or conversations between you, a health professional, and Susan, I'd love to hear. This is time for questions and answers. Susan, I have a wonderful friend I met through Farmers Market where I sell coffee in Roslindale. Her name is Salimata, and she sells kombucha. And we found out by complete coincidence that her husband is also a friend of mine from 25 years ago. He went on one of my trips to El Salvador. He's a Jewish guy, and he had to go to Mali to ask her father for her hand in marriage because she and her family are Muslim. And I want to know, Mali is primarily an Islamic country, and is the culprit here Islam, or is it something more traditional that predates Islam? And what is the position of the imams and the mosques on this question?
Well, FGM does predate Islam, but many Muslim leaders support it. And so even though it's not really part of the religion, the Muslim leaders are part of what's holding back the movement. But the Muslim leaders are divided on this. We give out a handout in Mali with, we have it in the green papers back there. On the front, it has all of the reasons not to have your daughter cut, you know, all the health problems and psychological problems, and minimizing the sexual problems, but talking about them. And then on the other side, it has quotes from religious leaders. And we put the ones there who are on our side, although we have one who's a big famous religious leader, Usman Sharif Haidara, and he is so famous that even though all he said was it's not part of the religion, it's just a tradition, but he didn't say to stop it, we decided that was worth putting on because, he's so famous, but we keep every 5 years or so, we go back and say, are you getting any more? Do you want to give us a better quote? And he says, well, no, I think anything that cuts down on promiscuity is a good thing. So that's his position. But meanwhile, his doctor is really working with us. He's big enough. He's got his own university and his own health center, and his doctor is a big ally of Sini Sanuma's. I think one of these days, hopefully before I die, he's going to say, you should stop FGM. But the Grand Mufti of Egypt came out with a really good statement a few years ago that we added to our list. Most of the people on our list of religious quotes are Malian, but we added the Grand Mufti because it's pretty big. So it's an evolving situation, but and we've had some imams and preachers preach about stopping FGM. There are some that are really with us. There's this one time a year where they just preach all night, and we had a couple of guys who were preaching our anti-FGM message all night. People gather in like a whole neighborhood square and lots of people. But I guess on the whole, the religious element is pushing back against us, although we do have our allies among the religious leaders. We don't really know where it, Fulani asks, what's the origin of FGM? And we really don't know. A lot of people say that Abraham's wife, Sarah, was jealous of the slave girl that she had a kid with because she was too old or something like that. And so she said, well, okay, he can sleep with my husband, but we're going to cut her clitoris off. But I don't really believe that, but a lot of people in Mali do. But it's a very ancient thing. Egyptian mummies have been found to have their genitals cut. So it's been going on for a very long time. We sort of think it started in Egypt. How it lasted more than 1 year, I have no idea. It's just so insane. There are places, there's one section of Mali around Timbuktu, the whole area up there, where they don't do it these days. They used to do it, but one time in 1903, I think, there was a big group of girls that were cut together, like 300 of them, and only 2 survived. And they, that was enough to really get their attention. And they said, okay, we are done with this. We are not doing this anymore. And that's still the case up there, aside from some people who've immigrated maybe, but it's, we don't know how it started. It certainly has something to do with controlling women's sexuality, but what a crazy idea and how it could have lasted all this time, but it is going down. And I saw a survey of 1,000 people, not the biggest survey, but where they said the really young girls, I think it was up to, I forget, about half of them were not being cut. So that's some serious progress, although how anybody can do this, I think they should have a rule. Any parent who takes their daughter to be cut has to be there with her when it happens and watch. But the tradition is that you say, oh, I can't take it, and you leave while the daughter goes through this by herself, well, with other people, holding her down. So, yes. Are the excisers medically trained? No, they are not. They are trained by maybe their mother or another excisers that they've helped, but they are not. They're getting a little bit more medically astute in having a clean razor blade for each girl, or, you know, washing their knives or something, but that doesn't go very far. So there is a rule that the government made that said that no medical professional can do this. They'll lose their job, but I believe that some still do.
Are the excisers women or men?
The excisers are always women. It wouldn't be appropriate for a man to be seeing a little girl's private parts. So it's hard to imagine. I'm sure they've all been cut themselves. They remember how horrible it was, but people have different reactions to trauma. And some people say, I got through it. I was tough. I learned to be tough. And they sort of try to make, you know, reasons why it's a good thing. And my mother told me it would be shameful if I didn't do this, and I did it. And so now, how are these little girls going to get out of it if I had to go through it? But then a lot of other people are saying, I know what I went through. Never will my daughter have to go through that. So we don't know what makes one person go one way and the other. But yeah, it's always done by women. It's kind of like the women's province. A lot of husbands don't get involved. They say that's a women's thing. But in the families where the husband does decide, I'm going to put my foot down, pretty often he can have his way. But I was friends with a guy in Mali. He worked at the bank where I went, and we got talking, and he was, you know, I talked him into being anti-FGM. And one day he said, and then he told his family, and they said, are you crazy? And that was kind of the end of the discussion. And then one day I went in and he said, I went home the other day and my daughter was in bed, and I said, what happened? And they said they had her cut. I couldn't stop them. So the grandmother, the mother-in-law, the women, the older women of the society think that this is an important tradition. A lot of them, not all of them. But a lot of people say you'll never get a husband if you're not cut. And occasionally a husband requires an excised wife, but more often, well, I don't really know. I don't know statistics, but I hear a lot of people saying that they want to marry an unexcised wife. And then you hear a lot of Malian men kind of putting Malian women down, saying, oh, you know, they never want to have sex and they're so cold and everything. Well, you wouldn't like it too much if it were painful for you, seriously painful. So it's just like a lose-lose situation, except that it's getting better.
Just one more question from me. Is this more of a rural phenomenon than an urban phenomenon? More educated people in the city, and the other question is this especially in Mali, or is it all over Africa and the planet?
There is more FGM among uneducated people, but not as much less as you would think. It's pretty similar. How much does it matter if you're educated or not, and also if you're rural or urban, as far as whether you do FGM or not? And it makes a little bit of difference. It's a little more common in the rural areas than in the city, and also a little bit less among educated people, but not all that much of a difference. There are now 1,400 villages in Mali that we know of. I'm sure there are more that haven't made it onto the list that I started with the women's ministry in my last day. So the villages are doing pretty good work. That's a small percentage of the number of villages in Mali, but because of the village structure, if you can get the village chief on your side, you can really convince everybody to stop. Whereas in the city, everything is more individual, family by family. But actually my partner, Kaniba, that we saw the last two meetings, one that was called by the exciser and one where they were singing Leave Her Alone. She thinks that she's going to have 3 neighborhoods that will be making a collective decision, and that'll be our first neighborhood collective decision. I've always been saying, why is it always villages? And we'll see. Hopefully that'll work. So let's see. Did I get all that? Oh, right. It's not only Mali by any chance, by any means, but there are, in that second slide, I showed which countries. It's very big in Egypt. There are like 5 or 6 countries where it's as much as in Mali. And then there are a lot of other countries where they, 20% of the population practices and so forth. And it's mostly in Africa, but then Indonesia is pretty much 100%.
Just a second.
Okay. First, I wanted to thank you for your wonderful speech. That was highly educational and enlightening. And my second question is, or second statement is, do you know anything about FGM occurring here in our community at Boston Children's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts?
I don't know anything about it happening in Boston, but hear somebody say that they thought a barber in Dorchester was doing it, and I asked a lot of Malians whether they knew anything about this, and nobody said they did. FGM in Boston, I don't really know about, but we presume there must be some going on. There are in the US, the only statistics we have come from the CDC, and it says that there are 500,000 girls and women who probably either are cut or are in danger of being cut. That's a big difference. We really don't know, in other words. But I was part of the group. I had a minor role in helping to outlaw FGM in Massachusetts. I think it was a couple years ago that we got that through. There are now 10 states that still don't have laws. There is a federal law, but the way our federal system works, that crimes in individual states, if they don't cross state borders, are really much better suited for prosecuting with state laws. So I think I remember reading that 14,000 girls and women in Massachusetts are either cut or in danger of being cut. But again, that's a very unsatisfying statistic. They're just going by, immigrants from the places where they cut.
Polani, was there something else? Or are there any people on Zoom? Lee.
I want to know, is there any relationship between male circumcision and cutting in terms of the whole background of it?
Well, I believe that all the places where they do FGM, they also cut the boys. I don't know really much about actually the history of either one. They're both bad, and Yeah,
it's just normal in Judaism. You have circumcision.
that's right.
So
And,
why?
Why do they have it? Yeah, some people say hygiene, although you can always wash.
Yeah,
And
that's-
it is much more likely for men to be impotent if they are cut. So people do it, but it's not really a very good idea. But women suffer much more. You know, I think that even the men who are not, I mean, I don't want to minimize the problems with male circumcision, but most men who are circumcised can still have sex. And many women who are cut they just hope it never happens again. Maybe they do it like once a year because they have to, because they're married or something. It's a very individual thing, but I don't know, not a very good answer, but that's the best I can do. Do you have anything to say on that? Lee, do you have anything to say
No,
on
I
that?
just was wondering what the relationship, there really must be a religious relationship.
I've heard people say that women, since men have to be cut, women should be cut as a little equality thing.
So here's a follow-up to Lee's question. Do men who were circumcised enjoy sex less than men who are less circumcised? Not circumcised,
I think that
as seemingly happens with women who are cut.
I believe that they do. For one thing, more of them aren't even able to have sex. And I know that the foreskin is very erogenous. So I don't really know how to answer that. We do have Ron Goldman on the call. He could probably give us an answer to that.
Before he comes on, could I ask you a question? Or do you want to?
Go ahead, Fulani, and we'll look for Ron Goldman if he's there to join us after Fulani's question.
Okay.
So if you physically cut a part of the body, male or female, we have a reproductive system that goes on. And that cannot be cut away because a female child, 12, 13, 14 years old, is getting an abundance of estrogen, and the males are getting the testosterone. So that emotional part of developing your sexuality as a young human being, but then you cut something, there's a little question right there in my mind of that's going to happen anyway. You can remove the clitoris, but the estrogen is building, the breasts are being developed, and all the other sensuality things that happen with estrogen being in our body. I think part of your campaign could be on these two subjects. So, and for the male, the testosterone, they grow here, their voices get deeper, they start having sexual feelings. But if you're cutting skin off, which is a physical part, and I know they're both connected, but there seems to be something missing in the understanding here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's very complicated.
Yes, yes.
And most outsiders believe that any excised woman cannot enjoy sex. But when you ask a whole lot of excised women, they are offended by that. One time I was at a conference and a man read a poem he had written that I thought was so sweet and understanding. And he was talking about being in bed for the first time with a woman and realizing, oh, this isn't really good for you. And he was very understanding. And the only reaction, I'm sure there were a lot of people in the audience saying, yeah, that's me. But the only reactions we heard were people saying, I'm not mutilated. I enjoy sex as much as anybody else. You know, they have this modern feeling that they should, and maybe they do. A lot of them say that they do. And I don't really know. I can't speak for somebody else. But I know that even though the vast majority of Malian girls are cut, they, you know, they want boyfriends. They, you know, it's, I think you know, you want love and you want this whole romance, and it doesn't all come from, oh, it's going to be really good. It's like, you just want it. And even though, even though maybe when you get it, you're like, oh boy, is this what we've all been going after?
It could be
So-
a population control thing too, which we didn't discuss. Right? Controlling the population in African countries.
But no, I mean, it's an indigenous culture. I don't know what to say about that. Ron, are you in there? Do you want to say a very brief answer to?
Do
Sure.
we have,
Can you hear me?
here
Yeah.
is Ron.
Ron Goldman.
Welcome, Ron.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so a little bit about circumcision. Of course, it's most males in the United States are circumcised. No medical organization in the world recommends circumcision. The pain is extraordinary. It's traumatic. Some infants don't cry because they go into traumatic shock from the overwhelming pain of this surgery. Anesthetics don't work sometimes, and sometimes they're not even used. Various studies have found short-term effects of circumcision include changing sleep patterns, activity level, mother-infant interaction. This definitely has adverse effect on the relationship between the child and the mother. That's our primary relationship. It is a foundation for future relationships. If your mother agrees to have the baby circumcised, that baby will not have a very good relationship with the mother. That's just putting it briefly. There's a lot more on this on our website, circumcision.org, if anyone's interested in more. There's complications and risks, which include hemorrhage, infection, surgical injury, and rare cases, even death. There are over 100 known complications and risks from circumcision. Let me just see. Okay, a little bit about the foreskin. It has functions. It protects the head of the penis, enhances sexual pleasure, facilitates intercourse. Men circumcised as adults report a significant loss in sensitivity. The foreskin on the average adult is about 12 square inches of highly erogenous tissue. And this is a sliding sleeve of tissue. And usually, when there's no erection, the foreskin covers the glands of the head of the penis and protects it from irritation. What else can we say? As far as Jews go, a number of American Jews are choosing not to circumcise their sons. When someone is traumatized, this is in the psychological literature, there's a compulsion to repeat the trauma on the next generation. That's just the way our psychology works and our behavior works. So if we're traumatized as children, we tend to do it. I mean, this happens even in later, like if you abuse your child when the child is like maybe 5 or 6 years old, studies show that it's more likely that when that child, if that child grows up and has a child later in life, that then adult would be likely to abuse their children. Okay, we tend to pass on the trauma. So,
Thank you very much, Ron.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
thank you, Susan.
Thank you, Ron.
You're welcome.
Very enlightening. And are there any other questions on the Zoom? Tilly, go ahead. Hello, Tilly.
All right, I'm Jewish, all right? The history of circumcision in this country is very interesting. It became into mainstream use among non-Jews after World War I because of trying to keep infection of cleanliness, et cetera, all right. And that's a fact. My mother-in-law, who is not Jewish, her first 2 kids were not circumcised. And then she had the boys all circumcised, including my husband. With me, I want to tell you, when I had my two boys, I was getting a whole lot about circumcision from, wasn't it terrible when my little boy was circumcised? I have to tell you, those boys, you can ask their wives about their sexual life, but we don't want to discuss, what goes on. My daughter-in-law, who is a physician, okay, and when she was in the end of her, training, she was beyond being an intern. All right, let's put it that way. She had the first one, and I went there, and she gave birth in New York City at Mount Sinai, and where, of course, circumcision was available. Well, what happened is she was ready to be discharged, and the baby Guapo had to be kept in a little bit longer for an infection, all right? So he was already 10 days old. Anyway, she's waiting, and she's waiting. And she nudges me. If they don't come right now, I'm going to do it because I know how to do it. And it's a snip. And I can tell you the lovely girlfriends that Guapo has had. How do you say, relationship with their mother? Baloney head. It's a quick piece, and it's done for health reasons, okay? And yes, I don't know. You can ask my boys and grandsons, and I only have 6 of the grandsons.
Okay, thank you, Tilly.
Please.
Thanks, Tilly. Wow.
Any other questions,
Any
or
other
should we call it a
questions,
day?
or shall we? Ken, join us, Ken. Hi.
Hi.
Ken.
Thank you so much, Susan, for your work.
Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, a couple of things. First, I noticed on your map that there seemed to be increased of the cutting in the west coast of Canada and the west coast of Alaska. It was brown, and I'm wondering in what communities that occurs.
I wish I could give you a really good answer, but I believe that I've heard that there are some indigenous communities who do it.
Yeah.
But I'm really not sure.
Yeah, and also, it seemed like you had pretty good progress in your work, but I'm wondering if you had any serious opposition, whether there were threats or that sort of thing.
Well, as I said, we've had the religious community, the Muslim community pushing back. I believe we would have had a law by now if that hadn't been the case. Of course, a law is not the, the whole thing that you need. We have had a few people disapproving of what we are doing, but a lot more people are telling us, thank you, thank you. I remember before I left, a lot of people said, do not go over there. If you want to help, just send money, because they don't want white people coming over telling them what to do. And I said, well, I'll be sure to stay in the background if I go. And I think it was 1 or 2 times in my 12 trips there that somebody said, you're kind of out of place here. This is our culture. And otherwise, people are saying, I can't believe you leave your comfortable country where you don't have this problem to come over here in the heat and all the germs and the dust and help us with our problem. And I say, well, thank you, thank you. It's, I think the main thing slowing it down is just culture, tradition. People think they should do what their parents have done unless they have big reasons otherwise. So it's a slow process.
Yeah. Also, I'm thinking that really behind this is patriarchy and the effort to control. I'm sure there's some old economic motives in terms of family dowries and making sure that women are loyal and that children are not outside the family and so forth.
Yeah, it definitely goes with patriarchy, and also it goes with polygamy. If you have 4 wives and they all have a normal sex drive, then you're going to have a hard time keeping them all happy. Of course, that may not be your big concern, but if your wives are happy to have it be another one of the wives' night, because then they don't have to worry about you, then it sort of works together nicely in a sad way.
We have a couple more questions. If I could ask that they be quick ones, because we're getting on 1 o'clock and I'm hungry. So we start with YH, I think joins us from down south, South Carolina.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead,
Ken.
YH.
Hi, Susan. Thank you very much. I would like to know what is the best source to find information about FGM in Kenya and Somalia. Can you point me in some directions?
All of the countries in Africa have what they call a demographic and health survey. And so those countries probably have those, and there's a FGM part of it. The UNICEF has some good information countrywide, country to country. There's the Orchid Project and 28 Too Many that do country surveys. They just came out with their Malian one. We were on the Zoom when they announced it. And so, yeah, look for 28 Too Many and see if they have a report on FGM in those countries.
Okay. The Women's Stats Project, would they have something on those countries as well?
I think so. I think that map that I have as my second slide may come from them.
Yeah. Thank you.
Dan, final question from Dan.
Okay, Susan, I missed the beginning, and I just want to basically come on and say thank you for what you're doing. I've known you for years. I know about what you're doing for years. I hope everybody mention all the other stuff you do, like teaching adults how to ride bikes, or a sign. There's a sign behind you. Work on that to free them. Because to me, activism is what it's all about. If we all can become activists in one way or another, how many Americans are activists? Very few. So we need to build up.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you, Dan, and thank you for all your wonderful work feeding the homeless for many years, tirelessly. Thank you.
Okay. So
yes. Thank you, Dan, and thank you all for joining us today. Susan McLucas, Philani Haynes, Michael Shea. Don't forget, we have a Wednesday program about the Holy Land Foundation documentary. Nida Abu Bakr, one of the daughter of one of the prisoners, will join us. We also have a Thursday event around Julian Assange and National Student Press Freedom Day, and lots of other stuff. Thank you. Again, I should get in the camera and say thank you, thank you, thank you. Amar Ahmad is our tech guru for the day, as is Charlie Welch on the other end, monitoring the Zoom. And Luis Guzman has just made a beautiful luncheon for us. Please come down some Sunday to join us and have lunch with us as well after the meeting.